You are listening to How to Get Over Your Ex, episode number 247, the number one tool to save your relationship. Welcome to How to Get Over Your Ex, a podcast on getting over your ex without it just taking time. I'm your host, breakup coach Dorothy. Let's turn your pain into power and your heartbreak into happy. Hello, beautiful brave hearts. I am so excited to be here today. And honestly, I am very excited to chat with you about something that's pretty different than my usual content, right? I have obviously for years spoken on breakups, meaning after the relationship has ended, what the fuck do we do to pick up the pieces? But as I've done this work, I have found out that there are some of you who are listening that aren't actually broken up with yet. Whether you're going to be the partner that does the breakup or you're trying to salvage the relationship before your partner breaks up with you, I know there are some of you who are listening and aren't to that place yet, or you've been listening for forever. You got over your ex years ago, and now you're in a new partnership. So even though I'm a breakup coach, I am a huge advocate for marriage. I love marriage. I'm a huge advocate for working through things in your partnership, not ending things prematurely. And honestly, from like the most transparent place I can come from, I'm very anti-toxic individuality. I'm very much against that culture. And I believe very heavily in partnership and learning to co-regulate with other human beings. We do not live in a vacuum. And I think that can be surprising to some, but I really want to explain that today. And there's just so much, and I'm not gonna lie. There is so much beauty in breakups and endings. I mean, we've got 200 some episodes, right? All about breakups and what to do and how to navigate them and how to get over your ex and how to build your bigger and better life. And all of that is so beautiful. But I'm not going to lie. A part of me wants to do relationship coaching from time to time. And sometimes I get to work with individuals who are getting over an ex that was an affair, and they get to like save their marriage and save those partnerships. And that to me, like it's soul fulfilling. I love working on that with people. And I know that a lot of relationships could be, I feel like a lot of relationships are prematurely ended and they could actually have been worked on. And if they would have had the right tools and the right communication patterns, like we could have done something with it. And so anyways, today I thought on the podcast, because I do this kind of haphazardly within the Get Over Your Ex program and when I'm coaching people just in general. But today I wanted to come on the podcast because I don't think I do this a lot on the podcast and really talk with you about what it's like to save your relationship or to work on a relationship before ending it. So I want to talk with you about something that's important. Whether you use this in your next relationship or if you're listening and you're still with your partner hoping it doesn't end or you want to give it another shot, I want to share a tool with you that changed the game in my partnership, specifically with my current husband, Jake. Now, for those of you who don't know, I am currently married to my husband, Jake. Love him dearly, obsessed, okay? We knew each other as friends for about 12 years, dated romantically for 2 years, got engaged, went through a very, very difficult miscarriage that forced us back to just dating. We backed away from our partnership. We called off our engagement. We reconsidered our relationship. We really had to do some soul searching individually and work through that. We kind of dated, worked on relationship for about 8 months, and then got re-engaged, married, and then pregnant within like a 2-month time frame, which wasn't like planned or anything. So we have been through our fair share of difficult times, but we've also had very beautiful, epic moments. And I feel like our relationship is so deep because of the work that we have cultivated, maybe is the right word, or like created or collaborated on. I feel closer to him now than I ever have to another human being. But if I were to show you our relationship even just a year ago, it looked very different and was extraordinarily difficult in in not a great place. Now, I share all of this with you because the tool that I want to talk to you about today is, of course, something you can utilize anytime in your partnership, but please know it's a tool that works in the midst of deep conflict and deep, relationship struggles and difficulties. So let's go ahead, let's dive in. First, I want you to know that this tool is not mine. This tool comes from an amazing, brilliant human being, Terrence Real. I think he goes by Terry Real. He wrote the book Us, Getting Past You and Me to Build a More Loving Relationship. And this book and this man is brilliant. It changed my life. It has changed how I forever look at partnerships in life. And he addresses real problems with real people, and he shows you how this tool can work. I have recommended this book to so many people, and the couples who have read this book and done the work have stayed together. And if you're a partner, if your partner won't read this book with you, I think that says a lot. It says something, because we can't force people to do things, right? If you're a longtime listener to this podcast, that's like my biggest thing is like, we can't force people to be who they don't want to be. We can't force people to, do things that they don't want to do. And I was actually shown this book via an Instagram ad, and it spoke to me so quickly and so directly. And the problems that I was experiencing in my current partnership, it was like, whoa, this is a book I want. So I bought the book immediately. But when I started reading it, I was like, wow, Jake, we really need to read this together. Will you please read this with me? And it was kind of like, yeah, I don't know, maybe, right? And about 4 months went by. He didn't read it. I hadn't read it. And finally, we were kind of towards like a breaking point in our relationship. And this book was kind of our last ditch effort at figuring out a way to see and understand one another before really calling it quits. And we started a book club where every Wednesday night we would get together. We would read a couple of chapters separately, but then when we would come together on Wednesday nights, we would go over what was your favorite part, your least favorite part, and 2 interesting points from each chapter. And this book really gave us a common language to speak and communicate with one another. And then the book club environment or space really gave us both safety in knowing what was being said in those evenings were really between him and I. And it was a safe space to truly voice what was coming up, not from a place of accusing one another, but from a place of, we want this to work. We need to figure this out. We want to move through this together, and we want what's best for one another. We truly did. And we just didn't know if that meant being together. And since then, I mean, obviously it worked wonders. We were doing great. I love being married to him. And we've continued our book club. Some of those books are self-help. Some of them aren't. Right now, we're obviously reading a lot of books around birth and having kids, but it's been a great way to bond and carve out time for our relationship. And I think even just that quality time is really helpful, right? But today I want to talk with you about Terry Real's feedback wheel, is what it's called. And you'll read it in this book, and I'm going to link in the show notes his book. I'll link him and that. But he created this tool called the feedback wheel. And it's such a powerful tool because I've got a lot of tools in my tool belt. I love all the tools that I have. I share so many of them with you guys on the podcast. But what was so interesting about this tool is it took thought work and mindset work, which we talk a lot about, and really combined it with the culture of co-regulating and being humans together, not in a vacuum. So it's a powerful tool. If you and your partner are interested in having a tool that can help you through difficult times, you've got to try it out. I'm going to go through each step quickly as an overview, but then I'll go ahead and I'll break down each step a little bit deeper to give you more information. So there's 4 steps to this feedback wheel. Step 1, this is what I recollect happening, kind of overviewing what you recollect happened in the situation that we're trying to work through currently. Step 2, this is what I made up about what I recollect. I'm going to deep dive into each of these. Step 3, this is what I felt. Step 4, this would help me feel better. Now notice the structure of this is really looking at like a specific thing. And he talks in his book about really being specific and stop in your arguments with your partner, stop getting so broad and stop using language like always or never. And that was something that I did a lot. Y'all, I did it a lot, even in my partnership with Jake, even after all of these, knowing all the thought work, being a coach, I had a hard time moving away from you're always like this, or this always happens, or this never happens. And that language is just not true, right? So stepping away from that, and then also not getting so broad when you find yourself in conflict with your partner, but staying really specific. And so the feedback wheel helps you stay specific. It's asking you, what do you recollect happened in this specific instance? This is what I made up about it in that specific instance. This is what I felt about this specific instance, and this is what would help me feel better in this specific instance. And it is so important to keep it specific. So if you are new to my podcast, welcome. Something you're going to learn is that thoughts create feelings. So I talk a lot about emotional maturity, taking control over your emotions, and knowing that no one can make you feel a certain way without your permission, which is all very true. I love that work, and I still stand by that work. And when it comes to partnership and romantic relationships, we are not in a vacuum. We are not isolated beings, and we are not meant to be this individualistic. Literally. I have lots of thoughts on this, but we won't even go into that rabbit hole. So how do we apply thought work with another human being? And the answer is this feedback wheel. It really showed me like, wow, we can be in partnership. Like, yes, of course, I'm responsible for how I feel and what I think and what I believe. And I can incorporate that in partnership with somebody else. And this feedback wheel really showed me how to do that. So again, I'll deep dive each step and we'll kind of break it apart here so I can show you. Step 1, what the author, Terry, is asking you to do in this step is really look at the circumstances. What are the facts of the situation, right? Remember, he's asking you to recollect what happened. And I think the hard part for this is that you might have a different recollection of what happened than your partner does. At least that's what I experience a lot in my partnership, in my relationship, is I have a recollection that is so different from Jake sometimes. So please know you don't have to agree on what you recollect. The rest of the feedback wheel will still work. And honestly, just gaining awareness on what your partner recollects versus what you recollect is eye-fucking opening. You're like, wow, we recollect these things very differently. It's crazy. And here's the thing. Sometimes I do this feedback wheel by myself and then I bring it to Jake. Sometimes I do it and I see the error in my experience and I don't bring it to him. Sometimes we both walk through it in the moment as it's happening. We'll just pause and we'll say, hey, do we want to do the feedback wheel here? Sometimes we back away from the situation and do the feedback wheel separately and then bring our separate wheels to one another and talk about it. There are many ways I have implemented this tool within my marriage. And so I wouldn't say there's like a right or wrong way to do it. Step 2, remember, they're asking, this is what I made up about it, which is really interesting the way he phrases that, right? A lot of times I'll ask, what am I making this mean about me? Or what am I making this mean? But I love how the author says, this is what I made up about it. I made this up. And it's really funny because I'll give you an example at the end of this of, wow, I'm literally making this up from my brain. Now, the author is asking you to outline your thoughts. This is what it's really getting at. He's literally like looking for the made up stories in your brain, what you're making this mean about you. Just like many of you in your breakup make the breakup mean something about you or make what your ex said like about you mean something. This is happening even when you are in a relationship. Right? The situation that you recalled in step 1, what are you making up about it? What are your thoughts about it? Now, the reason this matters, remember, is because thoughts create feelings. So then step 3, he's asking you, this is what I felt. What are the feelings? What are the one-word emotions that I am experiencing based off of what I made up about this situation? Now, you're being asked to share your feelings, but pro tip from the author that I thought was also very brilliant was share your least used feelings first. Share your least used feelings first. What does that mean? This means it kind of reminds me of arguments you've had a million times. You've already said, I feel angry and I'm frustrated with you and I feel betrayed. And you've said that like a million times. But what's behind all of that? What are the feelings really behind the anger? A lot of times it's fear. I'm feeling scared. I'm feeling lost. I'm feeling really lonely in this relationship. And this forces you to push and look behind the feelings that come up first, which can be so powerful, so vulnerable, and it opens up a completely new dialogue. When my partner turns to me and doesn't just say, I'm disappointed, and says, I'm feeling lonely, or I'm feeling isolated, or I'm feeling insecure or nervous, I see like the child in him. And I see the hurt part of him. And it also, I think, opens up his eyes to what might be lying underneath that. It's less about I'm angry at you, and it shows you I'm truly scared for either myself or our relationship. And of course, still include angry and frustrated or whatever your first emotions are, but put them last in the list, right? It's like I'm insecure, lonely, feeling worried, scared, frustrated, and then angry is very last, right? Like not anger all the time is last, but whatever your least used feeling is, put that first. Step 4. Now here's the part that I feel like can get lost. Because remember, step 1 was recollect what happened. What is my recollection of what happened? And in the coaching industry, in our coaching world, we call those like circumstances. Then step 2 was looking at what did I make up about this, which was looking at your thoughts, the optional stories of what you made up about the recollection of what happened. Step 3 is looking at how you felt, those emotions. Now, this is something that I've taught you even in this podcast to do on a pretty regular basis. I've taught you to look at what are the facts of the situation and how are you thinking and what are you feeling. And you get really, really good at this. And it's really fun to do it within a breakup because you don't have to interact with a bunch of other humans. You really get to like figure out and learn how to do this in a container that's a little bit different. But when you're in a relationship, you've got to deal with all the other humans. There are other humans with differing recollections, with differing what they made it up and what they made it mean about them, with different feelings, right? And what I think is so cool about step 4, this is the part that I feel like can get lost in traditional thought work or mindset work because we are so hyper focused on individuality and so hyper focused on, I'm in this container by myself and, super independent and all of this stuff. But remember that step 4 is this would help me feel better. This would help me feel better. This part though, this step was a step that was 1000% missing from all of my relationships. And that's because I believe that thoughts create feelings. So I don't actually believe that someone else can make me feel better or different. It's my thoughts that do that job. However, there are for sure things that people can do in relation to me that make that thought work easier. Okay? So just because we can change our thoughts doesn't mean we should never ask for what we want more of. What? I'm going to say that again in a couple different ways. Just because we can change our thoughts to feel differently doesn't mean we should. Just because we can change our thoughts to feel differently doesn't mean we have to. And it doesn't mean we shouldn't ask for what we want or speak up in our partnerships. Especially, I'm sitting here thinking like in long-term partnerships, marriage, all of this, it's like we're really working to learn how to manage a relationship together, which means we're always ever evolving. We're going to be on different pages from time to time. We're going to be growing and challenging one another and, having different things going on. And so just because we know that we create and cultivate our own emotions doesn't mean that co-regulation shouldn't be happening. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't speak up for ourselves when we're starting to feel resentful because we're noticing ourselves showing up in a way that's not authentic with ourselves. And I would want my partner to show up that way too. I would want my partner to say, hey, I'm feeling inauthentic to myself because I'm trying to do this thing for you. So an example of this, it might be something like, hey, I'm going to give you guys an example. I'm just backing up for here just a second. We're going to walk through all the steps, okay? So let's say step 1. Hey, partner, I didn't hear from you for 4 hours yesterday after I asked you a question via text. Step 1, that is what this person recalls, right? Step 2, what I made up about that was that you didn't care about me. I wasn't a priority and you weren't thinking about me. Step 3, what I felt was isolated, lonely, forgotten, scared, panicked, and anxious. Then, step 4, I think the missing component in a lot of partnerships, what would help me feel better is you checking in with me more often. What? How easy was that? What would help me feel better is you checking in with me more often. Now, the other person in the partnership doesn't have to do what you say would help you feel better. Let's be clear about that. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't ask for what you want. All right? In a healthy partnership where both partners they want it to work out, more often than not, that person wants to make those things work and wants you to feel good, and they want to figure out a way to show up that aligns with them but also helps you. So even if they say, well, honey, that doesn't actually work for me in those kinds of situations because I'm with coworkers. But what I can do and what I would love to do for you next time is maybe I text you before I go in, letting you know I'm going to be with the coworkers, I'm networking, I don't have my phone out, but I want you to know that I love you, I'm thinking about you all night, and I can't wait to be home with you tonight. And if I go to the bathroom at all in that time frame, I'm totally going to message you and let you know, pop in, say hi. And then otherwise, I really hate having my phone out while I'm trying to network and have conversations with people. I feel like it's rude. I don't want to do that. But I'm also totally going to call you as soon as I'm done to touch base and check in with you. Like, beautiful, amazing, right? Because here's the thing. Like I said earlier, I personally want my partner to be themselves. I really do. And I want our partnership to support each other in being ourselves. I want my partner to be themselves. I want to be myself, my most authentic self. I want to respect each other and to respect marriage. And there is a way to do that. There is a balance of that. And I feel like the feedback wheel does such an amazing job at helping you balance it all. It's helping you look at, what are my thoughts? What did I make up about this? How am I feeling? All of it's valid, but here are the things that could be done that might make me feel differently or might make me feel better, right? In an easy, natural way, which of course it's coming from your thoughts, but it's so helpful when it makes the thought work easier, right? So it's the number one tool, the best tool I have found, at least to date, to help people working on their relationship together. So I wanted to share it with all of you here today because it's been so powerful personally in my life, in my clients' lives who have utilized it to save marriages and relationships. It's been a tool my friends and my colleagues have since utilized, and I cannot speak more highly of this tool, the book, and its author, Terrence Real. I am not endorsed by him. He has no idea who I am. He doesn't know I have this podcast or that I'm recording this episode. I don't get any kind of kickback. It is literally just this book. More people in the world need to know about it. Whether it's for your next relationship or the one you're in now, it will change everything. All right, my beautiful brave hearts, I love you so much. I hope you are having an amazing day, and I will talk to you next time. If you're loving the How to Get Over Your Ex podcast and you want to learn how to get over your ex in 3 months or less to build a life better than the one you thought you had with your ex, I would like to personally invite you to my next group course where we take everything you've learned here on the podcast and apply it to your life. Come check it out at www.lifecoachdorothy.com.